I'd like to start by saying that I lead a relatively straight-edge lifestyle, so what I experienced last New Year's Eve was definitely not a hallucination or a drunken mistake. It was real. I live just outside a typical small southern town, and some of my friends reside even further in the country, reachable only by dark, winding back roads. One of those friends, Darren, lives in one of the wealthier neighborhoods, accessible only by these roads. Every year, Darren's family hosts a New Year's Eve party, and I always look forward to it. It's always a fun time, so receiving the formal invitation in the mail never fails to excite me. The weather in the South can be unpredictable in the winter, and it had just turned cold a few days before the party. The frigid air and the bumpy, poorly kept roads made the ride uncomfortable. I typically avoid using my brights to prevent blinding other drivers, but the darkness on those winding country roads required it. The road was bordered by dense trees, making it hard to see the turns ahead, and there were no other houses between Darren's neighborhood and the main road, except for a dilapidated shack. As I drove, my headlights illuminated a strange figure standing on the side of the road. It was a woman, dressed in a white gown, completely out of place for the cold. She didn't move, just stood there with her back to the trees. I passed by cautiously, thankful she didn't step into the road, but something made me glance in my rearview mirror. The woman had turned and was staring directly at me, frozen in place. It was unsettling, and I quickly dismissed the thought of offering help. I was almost certain she wasn't a guest at the party. The night proceeded without issue, and I arrived at Darren's house around 8 p.m. The celebration continued until midnight, when the guests started to leave. I stayed a little longer to help clean up and was the last to leave. When I started my car, I noticed a low tire pressure warning. It was an old car, so I figured it was just the cold weather affecting the tires. Despite that, I decided to drive back the same way I came, hoping to avoid any delays. About 5 minutes into the drive, I began to hear a strange scraping sound. My car eventually came to a stop. Upon checking, I discovered all 4 tires had been shredded, as though they had been torn apart by something with claws. I couldn't believe it. No one would be out there at this hour, and there was no phone service in the area to call for help. As I stood there, the wind died, the forest fell silent, and I could feel something watching me. A twig snapped nearby, followed by the voice of a woman whispering, "I see you." My blood ran cold. In the pitch-black darkness, I could barely make out the figure of the woman in the white gown, her face grotesque and disfigured, as though half her jaw was missing, yet she grinned. In that moment, terror surged through me. I turned and ran. I sprinted back to Darren's house, my heart pounding, and pounded on the door. Darren's family quickly ushered me inside, and I explained everything. They were understanding, offering to let me stay the night and even calling the police. The officers promised to search the area, but I just wanted the night to end. Later, around 3:14 a.m., I awoke to soft taps on the second-story window. When I looked out, I heard that same voice. "I see you." She had followed me there. The next morning, the police found a large, rusty knife in the yard near Darren's house, likely the weapon used to slash my tires. It turned out she had been following me from the beginning of the night. Despite the terror, I planned to visit Darren's house for New Year's Eve again this year, but I'll definitely take the long way around. The woman was never found, but the questions remain. How did she track me so easily, and how could she speak so clearly with half her face missing? A year later, when I was 26, I had another strange experience. After visiting a friend in San Diego, I took a late flight home, landing just before midnight. I grabbed a taxi, and the driver was oddly flirtatious, asking me strange questions and making me uncomfortable. As we drove, I noticed that he passed my exit and didn't slow down when I pointed it out. He kept asking intrusive questions about my relationship, making me feel more uneasy by the minute. When we approached a red light, I noticed a police car nearby, and in a split-second decision, I jumped out of the taxi and ran toward the car. The driver didn't chase me, he just drove off. The officer kindly gave me a ride home, and I thought the worst was over, until later that night. I got home to find knocking at my door. I froze. What if it was the taxi driver? The knocks came and went, but eventually stopped. The next day, I found out from my neighbor that someone had been trying to get into my apartment, claiming to be my dad. But when I called my dad, he had no idea about any of it. I told my father everything, and he insisted I come stay with them. I eventually went back home, but strange things kept happening. I felt as if I was being watched. One day, as I was packing to leave again, I heard a voice behind me saying, "I wasn't going to hurt you." An arm appeared, and I bolted out of the apartment, pounding on my neighbor's door for help. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, the intruder had fled. Despite the constant unease, I've since moved to a new apartment, installed cameras, and bought a taser for safety. But the memories still linger, and I'm left wondering, was that taxi driver even real? Or was I dealing with something much darker?